Hi guys, it's Miss Ginny. I am back today with a little bit of an experiment about the difference between freshwater and saltwater. So we've learned already in our reading that the difference between oceans and seas versus lakes or streams or rivers are that oceans have saltwater as opposed to freshwater. If you think about the water that comes out of your tap, it's water that we can drink. But the water in the oceans is not water that we can drink. It has salt in it. So today we're going to do an experiment that will help us learn some cool new information about salt water. I'm going to do the whole experiment, and then at the end, if you want to do the experiment, I'll kind of tell you how to get set up. For now, you can just watch. If, however, you want to do what great scientists do and take some observations, what I'm going to invite you to try is to make a page in your notebook that looks something like this. Okay? So I drew that cup of water 4 times. At the top, I wrote hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess that a scientist makes to try and guess what they think will happen. I made 1 drawing for freshwater and 1 drawing for saltwater for my hypothesis. And then I did it again. I did 1 cup of freshwater and 1 cup of saltwater for my observations. Now, if you want to pause and make your notebook look like that, go ahead. Because what I'm going to do now is explain the experiment to you so that you can make your hypothesis. So this is my cup of water again, and I'm going to adjust the camera so you can see it better again. And here are a few of the other tools that I have. Right now, this is the fresh water. I have an uncooked egg. I also have some salt, and I need a pretty big quantity of salt. So I took a measuring cup. This one it says 2/3, but I didn't fill it up all the way, so I would bet I have about half a cup of salt right there. And then if you want to make the experiment a little more fun, you can also give yourself a spoon. So what I'm going to do in this science experiment is I'm going to take my egg and I'm going to drop it first into the fresh water. And then I'm going to add the salt to my fresh water and turn it into salt water. And we're going to drop the egg in again. All right? Now, if you at home have 2 cups, that would make this a lot easier. I just happen to have 1 cup that you can see through, so that's what I'm doing. So if you go back to your notebook, you're going to ask yourself, what do I think is going to happen? What's my hypothesis about what the egg will do in the fresh water versus what the egg will do in the salt water? So I don't want to draw because I don't want to give away what I think I already know. But if you wanted to draw the egg, you could draw the egg up at the top, you could draw the egg in the middle, you could draw the egg at the bottom, right? Basically, think back to Miss Danny's experiment. Do you think that the egg is going to sink or float? Then think about salt water and ask yourself again, do you think that the egg is going to float on the top, be somewhere in the middle, or sink down to the bottom? Okay. Once you've made your hypothesis, let's get started. So again, here's my glass of fresh water. I'm going to take my egg and I'm going to gently drop it in. What happened? It sank down to the bottom. Okay? So if in your hypothesis for freshwater you said sank down to the bottom, you would be correct. If you had it in the middle or at the top, your hypothesis would not be correct, but that's totally fine. The point of a hypothesis isn't always to be right. The point of the hypothesis is to make a prediction. So now you can go back into your notebook, and underneath observations for the fresh water, I am going to draw the egg sinking down to the bottom. There's my egg. All right, now for the fun part, we're going to see if I can retrieve this egg using my spoon without breaking it. Success. And now we're going to add some salt and stir it in. You ready? So the reason I'm stirring it is to kind of help the salt dissolve a little bit into the water. You can already see it's a different color just from that salt getting stirred in. We'll let that settle for a second. And then I'm going to pour in the rest. All right, now before you drop your egg in again, it's kind of fun to experiment with how this feels. So you can kind of stick your finger into the water. And to me, it feels almost like slippery or oily, if you will. And then if you really want to challenge yourself, you can take a little sip. Ooh, I put a lot of salt in there. So it's a good reminder that salt water, it's not something that humans drink to stay hydrated. Okay, so let's get back to your notebook. Did you make a hypothesis about where the egg would go in the salt water? Do you think it's going to sink or float? All right, here we go. I'm going to take my egg, and I'm going to gently drop it in just like last time. Ooh, interesting. I'm going to move it closer to you in case the sun is making it hard for you to see. What happened this time? This time the egg is floating near the top of the water. So if you go to your observations, I would draw my egg. It's got a little bit poking out over the top, and it looks like it's right about there in the glass. Okay. Now, if you're wondering why this is, that's because salt changes the density of the water, okay? So it's basically a fancy word that means it changes the makeup of the water so that it changes whether objects sink or float, okay? So if you want to try this same experiment at home, think about getting a glass, an uncooked egg, some salt, a spoon, a safe place to work, and preferably an adult to give you some help, okay? So make sure whether an adult can help you with the experiment or not, that an adult at least knows that you're giving it a try, and let me know if you come up with the same results when you do the experiment. See you tomorrow.